Okay, people ask me all the time about watches. So I'm going to give you a little history of watches, and it's actually a pretty neat history. Basically, watches are portable clocks, and literally there's been clocks for thousands of years. Originally there were sundials. Didn't help a lot because they were accurate to a degree, but the problem was is there's not 12 hours in the day every day. Winter days are shorter, summer days are longer, so you don't get exactly great time. The Romans had a really great thing. When you went to court, lawyers were only given so much time to speak, which I really wish they did today. So they had water clocks. So basically it was a vessel full of water. They would fill it to a mark, and there was a hole at the bottom. And to make them extremely accurate, because basically those holes would wear out over time, the original ones were, they ended up actually putting jewels with a hole in them so they wouldn't wear out, and both lawyers had the exact amount of time. Then you fast forward to the Middle Ages, the very first clocks didn't actually have hands. At various prayer times during the day and night, they would just ring a bell, and you knew it was the right time to pray. Eventually, instead of having bells, they also had bells and an hour hand. Then after the hour hand, 50, 75 years later, they actually came up with a minute hand to accompany the hour hand, and that's the clock we know today. Eventually, a watch was invented in the 1600s. It kept terrible time. If you've ever looked at the inside of a watch and you see that thing moving back really fast, that's the balance wheel. And there's a thing called a hairspring that bounces that back and forth. The reasons why it's called a hairspring, the original ones were made out of a boar's hair. Problem with that is, little humidity in the air, it gets a little sluggish, gets too dry, it gets brittle, didn't exactly work right. By the beginning of the 1800s, watches were becoming pretty darn accurate and pretty complex. By right around 1850, the watch capital of the world was like London. But something happened right around 1850. Machine tools became really good and really inexpensive for precise, small tools to make watches. Little watch companies started popping up all over the United States. And by the 1890s, the watches made in the United States were the best watches in the world, hands down. Everyone wanted American watches. As a matter of fact, they were so desirable, the European watch companies were putting American-sounding names on their watches. Well, the American watchmakers were a little upset over this, so they went to Congress and got a bill passed. So if it was a foreign-made watch, it had to say the country of manufacture right on the front. Your watch legally has to say Japan or China or Swiss or wherever it was made right on the front of the watch. And all the European watch companies just basically couldn't compete with pocket watches. So the Europeans started making wristwatches for men and women. And they tried to get that over in the United States, but men just felt effeminate if they wore a wristwatch. Only women wore wristwatches. So the Swiss watchmakers came up with a great idea. They actually sent a bunch of representatives to Hollywood with a lot of money and a lot of watches. They started paying Hollywood celebrities to wear wristwatches. Within just a couple years, wristwatches for men were all the rage. Only old guys wore around a pocket watch. American watch companies just could not compete with the Swiss watch companies. They already had the market. They already had the designs for the wristwatches, and that was sort of the demise of the American watch companies. Then in the 1950s, Rolex started coming up with some incredible watches. They started coming up with truly waterproof watches. There was other people who claimed it. Basically, Rolex had the first practical waterproof watches. The other thing that made Rolex just skyrocket in popularity, there's no actual model, the Rolex Presidential. The reason why it started being called the Rolex Presidential was when John Kennedy, in 1961, his inauguration speech, he was wearing an 18-karat gold Rolex day date, and everyone just started calling it the Presidential. So that's a brief history of wristwatches. And a lot of people also ask me about, well, how do I know if I buy a used watch at a pawn shop if it's right? First off, you got to go to a really reputable dealer. I'm going to say me because, hey, it's me. But there are a lot of other reputable dealers like me out there. Me and the people who work for me know every little thing. To me, it's easy to spot a fake Rolex. And for the people who work for me, we know what we're doing. The best way to explain this, if you know everything about a Rolex, you start going down a list. Do the hands look right? Does the dial look right? Does the magnifier look right? Are the fonts right? Is the bracelet right? Is the movement right? Is the case right? I mean, and you go through everything. If one of those things is wrong, I'm not going to touch it because there is something up with that watch and I don't want to mess with it. So every watch we sell, we go through that entire process. If you want to sell us your watches, go on my website, send us an email, we'll look at it, maybe we could work a deal, or if you want to buy stuff off us, I 100% guarantee it's real. All right, so this is not my daily, but I do a vlog every now and then. I'm trying to do a lot more of them. So thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.